So I'm just going to run through TV Paint. Before we do that, I just want to show you where you can get some more information, tutorials and documentation about it, because it's quite a different program. So TV Paint have their own website, tvpaint.com, nice and easy. And they have a support page which leads through to the documentation. If I click on that, you'll see that we've got 22 different headings, and in all of those there is more information to be had. And if you're stuck on something, you can just use the search function. So that's really useful to know that's there. Also, what's nice is they have a gallery, and you can see all the different sorts of painterly effects that you can get in TV Paint. This one's a particularly nice one because it's like watercolour. They also have a YouTube channel, TV Paint Development, because they are a French company, and they go through quite a good walkthrough here, and they've got the English tutorials as well, so make sure you're playing the English tutorials, which go from basics to quite complex things. So what I'm going to look at today is I'm just going to get a bouncing ball going on, just something simple, just so we can run through the basics. And I'm just going to save this image from Angry Animator. And don't forget, when we're working in the Media Lab, you need to be saving in the scratch disk, in a folder, and perhaps within your project that you're actually working currently on. So just save it in there. Okay. So back to TV Paint, and let's just have a look around. Up at the top, you have all of the normal icons: save, copy, undo, redo, and then all of these refer to panels that open and close on the left hand side. So these four open for you automatically. This one is the light table, which we'll go back to later, so we'll just turn that one off for now. But this is where you get your brushes from. So if you click and hold, you get extra options. Usually we use the stroke, obviously line, but you can also get a filled rectangle, filled ellipse, and this is a paint bucket tool. Here you'll find the crop, and here we find the panning and transform tool, which we'll be using later. So this is where you get the panning and transform. Don't forget, click and hold, and then you can choose the different option. Okay. So over on the right hand side, there's also a hidden preset menu. It's got lots of different colours, crayons, sort of stampers and things like that you can look at, and it goes on for quite a while, so you've got lots of different things to play with over there. But that is hidden, so make sure you know where that is. And then before we get into it, a default TV Paint project comes up with it being 24 frames a second. If you just change it here, that's just the playback, so we actually need to modify the project. So project, modify project, and we're just going to make it 25, because I like to work consistently across all the different programs that we would use. Click modify, and now we've got it running at 25. It's useful later to know that you can run the playback at 12.5 if you want to analyse your movement, but it will be in red. It shows you that that is just the playback speed. Always watch it in 25, and I will show you how to work on ones or twos as we go through. So first thing to do is to bring that image in that we saved. So you could also start drawing straight away, but I'm just going to bring this in to help. So here it is. Open it, and before I say OK or import to that, I need to change things on this little layer tabs. You've got little tabs up here as well. So I need to change that. I need to check all of that off so that it doesn't open it as a new document for me, as a new project. So make sure those three things are off. Don't worry about the width and the height. That's what the image actually is, and just import that. What it'll do is bring it in as a different layer. So now we have two layers, and we can turn them off and on here. So here with the eye tool. And now we can alter this because it's obviously a little bit small. So I'm going to stretch it to fit my window. So to do that, we need the transform tool. You can click on Control and T if you wish. You will get the green handles around the outside of your object. I'm going to hold down Shift and Alt, and then I'm going to stretch this out from the middle. So I've got Shift and Alt down, and I'm going to make it nice and big. Make it really big, about that. Make sure you press enter. I've got a red outline currently, which means I have changed something on this object. If I now press enter, changes green, and it will apply that transformation. Like in Photoshop, you need to apply the transformation. I just want to zoom out a little bit. To zoom out, we're down here. So it says 81.67. I can click on the minus, or I can click and drag on that to zoom in and out. I can also, using the shift key, use the comma and the full stop to zoom in and out. So I'm just going to zoom out because I want to move this down. So to move it down, I need to change it to the panning tool, and then I can just move that down a little bit. There we go. Now that's set, that's good to go. I can lock this layer down, but I need to change its properties for the frame. So if you see this little icon down here, if you click on that, it says none. Because this is a background, I want it to hold and be there at all times. For my actual frames that I'm going to draw, they need to be none, because I want each individual frame to be different. I'm now going to put that in the background, so I'm going to drag, need to be careful, drag that underneath. If it gives you that pop-up, you've dragged it on top of the other layer, because you can merge layers, but we actually want to drag it so it goes underneath. So it now changes the position of our layers, and I can now lock that layer. That layer will now stay there no matter how many frames I go forward, because it's got the hold property on it. So I'm just going to make sure I've got a brush or the stroke selected, which is a D if you want to catch up on the shortcuts. I'm going to make it kind of a bright colour. I'm going to red with a little bit of dark in it so we can see it. This is my size here. If you can see, I can change my brush tip. Oh, make sure you're on the right layer. If you get this symbol and it gives you try and click and draw and it gives you a no entry, it means you're on the wrong layer or you have locked that layer. So make sure you are working on the right layer by making sure this is highlighted. And now I can draw. You can always do your Control Z. I'm just going to play around until I get a brush that I like with my size. Yeah, about there, I think. So for my first frame, I'm moving, and now I want to move up so I can see my circle. And we need to pan around the actual image. We use this little tool here. And then that means you can pan around the image. So first frame, I'm just going to freehand and do this quite quickly. First circle, okay? Now I want to move on to the next frame. Right arrow key. See, my timeline moves along. There's nothing in there, so I can now draw my second circle. As soon as I press my pen down, the second frame appears. So I've now got 2 frames. 1, 2, 1, 2. So if I put it onto third frame, I now need to draw my third circle. And just work my way through all of these as steady as you like. You can move around. Make sure you make a next frame. You can obviously take as long or as short as you want when you're actually doing your animation proper. But if you're just doing a rough, perhaps for the movement, then you can zoom through this quite quickly. And I'm using the right arrow key to get me to an empty frame. And then as soon as I draw, it creates me a new frame. So it won't take long at all to go through these. Make sure every frame only has one drawing on it. And there we go. There's all of our frames done. And I can use the left arrow key to whiz through the animation and see what it's like. This is a very simple animation, but you could put your light table on if you want to check your movement. So let's put the light table on and see what happens. So I need to check my light table preferences. This is where I get my preferences. But if I want to actually turn my light table on, I need to turn it on the layer that I want to see it. So I can turn it on that layer. So what I've got is I've got a light orange for the 3 frames to the right and green for the frames to the left. So if I go through, we should now see 3 frames to the left are green, 3 frames to the right are orange. And you can turn this down. You want to just see one either side, just turn those off. And now we just see before and after. You don't see, if you press play, which is the space bar, you won't see your light table. I can press home to get back to the beginning of the timeline. But if I just go through step by step with the arrow key, you can. So if you're checking out how your movement's going, you can. So I'm just going to turn off the background now that I've got my outline. I'm also going to turn off the light table, and I'm going to play my movement back at half speed so I can really see if I'm happy with how that looks. Yeah, it's not too bad. Some of my lines don't meet up, but that's not a problem. So put it back up to 25, put it back at the beginning, and now we're going to go through and make a fill on the ball. So we need a new layer. So under new, we're going to go new anim layer. We're going to lock the one we're happy with. We're going to call this one fill. Go back and call this one outline. Don't forget to save as often as you can. I can't save this one because I'm working on a demo. But don't forget to save up here, save project as. And then I want the fill to be underneath the outline, so I'm going to move them again. There we go. So outline on top, fill underneath. Now to go through and fill this, the simplest thing is to use the paint bucket. So I'm going to grab a bright, different colour, sort of a bright pink. And what I need to do before I start painting on this layer, and make sure you're on the right layer again, I need to change it so the source is actually above. And then what it does is it looks on the layer above for the line to fill. Also need to put gap closer on because some of my lines are a bit messy. Anywhere between 2 and 5 is good. And I'm also going to expand it by 2, which means it expands the edge of the layer, the edge of the fill out a little bit. Like in Photoshop, if you fill something, sometimes you can get a slight difference where the pixels don't quite get coloured in. So this is going to expand out a little bit so we get a perfect fill. And now if I click in the middle of my circle, I get a perfect fill. And if I look a bit closer, okay, let's look a little bit closer, see if we can see. So this will go all jaggy, but this is just because I'm viewing it really close. You should see that the line covers over the pink area rather than there being a gap where you might see a white space. You can also make sure that I am working on the right layer. Make sure I can turn each of my different elements off before I continue. And then just as we did the top layer, we can now go through and fill all of the outlines that we did for the original circle. So using the right arrow key again, got my paint fill ready, and we can just go through and really quickly fill that in. Done. Back to home, press the space bar, and there's my animation. Again, let's have a look at it a little slower. It's always quite useful to analyse it. Yeah, that's good. So that's how you go through and you do your basic single frame ball bounce.